What's going on, hockey fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the news that broke, I guess, a day ago of the time of this recording, 2 days ago by the time you guys are watching. I don't remember when it broke. Point being, though, Ryan Suter and Zach Prairie have just been recently bought out of their contracts by the Minnesota Wild. Very big news, as they are going to be having like $14 million dead cap space for a very long time in a very shocking situation. A lot of people thought that it would always end in buyouts with these massive contracts that were identical, that were given out to both of the big free agent players, I guess in 2013 or however long ago it was. Feels like eons ago, but point being, these contracts were always very controversial even from the moment that they were signed. At the time they were signed, it was 35% of the cap was gone to two players. That's how big these deals were and how small the cap was at the time it was signed, and that is really shocking when you think about it. But the point is that now that Ryan Suter is a free agent, he's no longer making that $7.5 million for the next 4 years. He becomes a very valuable asset to a lot of different NHL teams, and in this video I'm going to share my thoughts on what teams I think are going to be the best fits for him, what teams are going to pursue for him, and how I just feel like Ryan Suter is still a very valuable asset to a lot of different NHL teams. So if you haven't already subscribed regardless of the team that you root for, make sure to do it. As I say in every video, I am a biased Jets fan that hates no teams, that just loves talking everything hockey. So with all that being said, let's talk about Ryan Suter just as the player right now, because when you look at his stats, this is a guy that you'd be honestly surprised got bought out of the deal with the production that he puts up, because even advanced stats wise, he's still a very, very, very reliable player. Taking a look at his graph here, looking at his WAR, his offensive strength, his defense, and everything like that, he's a pretty solid guy for a guy that is 36 years old, going on 37, and still has very good offensive numbers for a guy that is that old. Going back over the last 4 seasons in the NHL from 2017-18, in 78 games played that season, 6 goals, 45 assists for 51 points. The year after that, in 82 games played, 7 goals, 40 assists for 47 points. The year after that, 69 games played, 8 goals, 40 assists for 48 points. And then this year, a decline in points definitely, but still a pretty good year. In 56 games played, 3 goals, 16 assists for 19 points. Now, definitely a very, very suitable guy still, and in my opinion, a very solid top 4 guy. The thing with Ryan Suter is that he's definitely still a very valuable asset to a lot of NHL teams, but not at $7.5 million, obviously. So now that you give Ryan Suter hitting the open market as a free agent, looking to sign with a new team, he is going to be potentially in a very good situation, because there are a lot of different teams I think are going to heavily pursue, including my own Winnipeg Jets, and I think a lot of other teams as well. The teams I think that are really going to pursue Ryan Suter to the full extent are starting off with the Eastern Conference teams, are the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, I think the Philadelphia Flyers are a really good fit for him when you look at how their defense is shaping up and what they need for that top 4. Ryan Suter, potentially for the next couple of years, to kind of mind the gap as they find more prospects and develop that defensive core a little bit more, could be very valuable to the Philadelphia Flyers, and as well as the Boston Bruins. Both of these teams could have immense improvement from getting a guy like Ryan Suter for the next couple of years. Obviously, you don't want to sign him to a long-term deal, because like I said, going on 37 years old is not a guy you want to be signing to a 5-year, however many amount of money contract, because that's a long time and it's not going to look good. You'll be buying him out again. Who knows if he's in the league in 5 years from now at 37 years old potentially. So when you look at just that alone, a potential 2-year deal, I feel like to any of those teams in the East, in Philly or Boston, could be a very good fit. I think he would just mesh in really well with the current players they have there as well, especially for the fact that Boston just re-signed Carlo as well today, which is very good for them to have long term and a good cap hit. So I think that there is a lot of value in keeping a guy like Ryan Suter, especially bringing him in if you're Philly and Boston. The question is whether or not he wants to go there. The other team I think would be in the East that is a very interesting fit where Ryan Suter could really fit in nicely is the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers are a team on the verge of becoming probably a juggernaut in the NHL, regardless of them winning championships or not. So they have so many young players that it's going to be, they have to have some of them become elite guys. With the players they have, Kakko, Lafreniere, the list goes on. They have so much talent. Having a guy like Ryan Suter to come in on a little 2-year deal to help develop that defensive core, have Adam Fox even learn a little bit from him, even though he's already just won his first Norris Trophy as a really young defenseman, to have Ryan Suter be there, one of the most reliable 2-way guys in the last decade, could be really good for that growth of that defensive core, as well as Jacob Trouba could probably flourish. Having a guy like Ryan Suter support him as well in that top 4, I think the Rangers would be a really good fit. They're obviously looking to bolster that blue line as well this year, so I think they would definitely be looking at pursuing Ryan Suter as well. Now, the other teams I want to talk about obviously are the teams that in Canada that I watch the most, the Winnipeg Jets, my own team, and the other team I think that will heavily pursue Ryan Suter in this year's offseason is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, first I'm going to talk about the Jets because they're my team. The Jets obviously are in desperate need of a blue line addition. We all know that. If you watch hockey in the last 3 years, you know how bad bad the Jets blue line is. If you watch my channel for even more than a day, you know how my thoughts are on the blue line and how bad I think it is. But the real thing that I think really affects the Jets when you look at Ryan Suter is how he would play with the guys they already have. If you can sign Neil Pionk this offseason, you have potentially Ryan Suter and Neil Pionk, fantastic pairing. Ryan Suter, Ville Heinola, fantastic pairing. The list goes on of the potential ways you could plug him in and use him effectively, especially considering the Jets have guys like Samberg, Chisholm, Ville Heinola, Sami Niku, all these guys trying to push for a consistent spot on that blue line. To have Suter come in on a 2-year deal to help mine that gap for the prospects, to have them jump in, potentially play a little bit with the Moose, play a little bit with the Jets, could be really good for the development, obviously, especially with the way that Paul uses defensive prospects. So I think having Ryan Suter could be a great get, obviously, and also just the fact that I think the way he plays the game, how he is defensively, and the offensive input he also brings could be huge, because the Jets are obviously missing that Bufflin defensive output for points. They're not going to get that from Ryan Suter at 37 years old, obviously a prime Dustin Bufflin, but he could definitely help maybe stabilize that core a lot. And honestly, with what he brings and how he plays the game, I think he would be a fantastic fit for this Jets club moving into the future, especially for like a 2-year window. I think it would be great. And the other team, obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs had another disappointing season, getting knocked out in 7 games yet again in the first round. They are going to be looking to do anything they can to bring in and shake up that defensive core and shake up the entire team most likely. And Ryan Suter is a guy that has been very successful, hasn't won a cup, could potentially go and sign there, obviously. Now, he's not, the whole Toronto homeboy going back there to play with his favorite team, but he could look at the Leafs, see a really good opportunity for him over the next couple of years, and if Kyle Dubas really wants to bring in more veteran leadership, you can't really get any more veteran leadership out of a guy like Ryan Suter, a guy who's wore the A for a very long time in Minnesota, a guy who's been, like I said, very consistent over the last even 4 years at a high age. Like I said, going back to even last year, 48 points in 69 games at 35 years old as a defenseman is pretty damn good. And even going back to when he was 34, 33, being able to put up 51 points, 47 points. This is a guy that has always been able to put up consistent points, a power play specialist at times, a guy that can always find the lane. Ryan Suter has great offensive abilities as well as his defensive side of the puck being very good as well. Even though his age has affected that, he's still a guy that can be very deadly for any top 4, really, especially on a good contract. Now, that's what this comes down to for all of these teams, is what the contract would look like. Now, personally, if I'm a GM of any of the clubs that I just mentioned, or hell, any of the other 32 teams in the NHL right now, potentially looking at signing Ryan Suter, I am not giving him any more than a 2-year deal. That is the max amount of term that I will give him. A 2-year deal at 36 going on 37, there's no way that he even most likely plays past that. And even if you want to go with 2 years to help kind of bring him in and use that as a way to get him to sign with you, that's probably the only other way I would do that. If you had to compete with other bids at like 1 year, potentially give him a 2nd year, and that can be free money basically for him if he retires or however that goes. But the point being is that when it comes down to it, I would only pay $4 to $4.5 million on a 2-year deal for Ryan Suter. I think that's a very fair deal for his age and what he brings currently, and also for the fact that most likely he will continue to decline, even though he's definitely not a Duncan Keith. And look what Duncan Keith just got for the Edmonton Oilers and the Chicago Blackhawks in that trade. Chicago winning by a landslide, getting Duncan Keith get out of there and not retaining any salary. Huge win. So when you look at Ryan Suter compared to Duncan Keith, I would take Ryan Suter any day of the week and have him potentially at 2 years for $4.5 million. I think it's a very fair clip for him. It's not going to affect you long term, because worst case scenario, you have to retire. He eats that last year of the contract. It's $4 million. It's not the end of the world to eat that for one season. So I think that reality, that's a really good deal that he could sign with any of the teams that I just said. And if anyone really offers him more than that, I think that that's not a very good, smart decision. And also, I don't think it's a smart decision if you go any more than 2 years. I think 3 years even is ridiculous, because you don't want to do that, especially if he only plays 1 year for you, or however that's going to go out. So 2 years, $4.5 million is the clip I think is very fair for Ryan Suter. But let me know all your thoughts out there, hockey fans. So what do you think was going to happen with Ryan Suter this offseason? Where do you think he's going to sign? What do you think is going to happen with him and Zach Parise? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below, as always. Make sure to subscribe regardless of the team you root for. It really does help this channel grow, and any support you can show the channel is always greatly appreciated. Make sure to go down in the description as well. Check out all my social media accounts, and also make sure to follow the Prairie Puck Podcast on Spotify. It's a podcast I do with Zachary Nolan from the Hockey Podcast, as well with Ryan from Hawk Garbage Sports. Even though Ryan is taking a little bit of an absence during the offseason, me and Zach will still be rolling out those content on the podcast as much as we can. So stay tuned for more episodes of that. And just check him out, and all of his links will be down in the description below as always as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Peace, love, and positivity to all of you beautiful people out there, regardless to where you are in the world. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. And go Jets, go.